Hello, Gaston County. Welcome to lucky episode number 13 of Gaston's Great, a podcast highlighting some of the great things happening in and around Gaston County. I'm your host, Stephen Long, and we are coming to you once again from the international headquarters of GSM Services right here in downtown Gastonia, and we are looking forward to having some great discussions in the coming weeks and months. We simply believe in discussing more of the reasons why Gaston's great. We are highlighting another great organization this week and have Robbie Patterson and Dr. Dustin Letts, who are both involved with F3 Gastonia and F3 Nation for that matter. Robbie, otherwise known as Broke, is the current Nantan of F3 Gastonia, and Dustin, also known as Whoopi, was the very first Nantan of F3 Gastonia. So we'll explain what all exactly that means here as we go a little further. But Robbie and Dustin, it's great to have you, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
You're very welcome. So,
Stroganoff. Thank you, Stroganoff.
You can explain that one later, Mr. Namer. So we're going to get started. Dustin, if you don't mind, just before we get into some F3 Gastonia details, just tell us a little bit about yourself and anything that you feel that you can share on a family-friendly podcast.
All right. I grew up in Macon, Georgia, and moved from Georgia to North Carolina, then up to Pittsburgh, and then came here for my first job. And I'm a cardiologist here in town. I'm better known as Caroline's husband, or Emmy, Lauren, and Madeline's dad. Been here since 2007, and I've loved it. And barring any kind of catastrophe, I'll end up retiring here, hopefully in the next 20 years or so.
Excellent. That's a very good story. Robbie, sir?
Gaston County native. Been here all my life. Went to North Gaston, grew up on the north side of town. Married a girl I knew all the way through school. Still live in Mount Holly. 2 daughters and a 6-month-old grandson.
Wow, that's right.
Work in construction, and also have a son-in-law that's active in F3. He's not a very good runner, but we'll let him slide.
Yeah, he's
slow. He's working on it.
Yeah, we're trying to get him better.
One of these days he can catch up with us. So just to clear something up too, we have North Gaston, we have East Gaston. No, you used to live in Mount Holly. You went to West Mac, is that right? Where did you go to high school? Okay, I'm sorry, I'm talking to Amy. For some reason I thought she was from Mount Holly all of a sudden, but no. I went to West Mac and East Gaston. Well, I just asked you that, and you looked at me like there was something wrong with me. And Ashbrook in the room. And while we're on it, Dustin, what was the name of your high school?
First Presbyterian Day School. We're the Vikings.
And then we also have Gaston Christian in the room, correct? All right. So we've got everything covered here. We've got public school and all the religions covered here today. So it's all good. So I'm going to start with the Nantan. So a couple things, the current Nantan, I should say. Can you share real quick, Broke, I've been waiting to do this forever. Who EH'd you, and how did you get your name? And then we'll kind of maybe just describe what F3, just in your own words, what is F3 about?
All right. I was EH'd by Dr. Dykstra South Point Family Practice. His son and my daughter went to high school together, and we're at a graduation party for my daughter, and he's talking to a couple of us about coming out. He knew I was a runner. He said, come on out. So, yeah, maybe not, but we did. A couple of us went out and liked it. Couldn't raise my arms for a week after the first workout, but that's all in perspective. And got to the naming process, and, we asked guys just to tell a little bit about themselves when you get your name. And I said, who I was, grew up in Gaston County, and I said I currently got a daughter that's a rising senior at UNCG, and got another daughter just graduated high school, headed off to Chapel Hill, and Top Hat yelled out immediately, man, you're broke. And that was the end of it. I didn't say another word. They named me Broke right off the bat. But, the mission or a little bit about F3 here in Gastonia, what it's about. It's the mission of F3 is to plant, grow, and serve small men's workout groups for the invigoration of male community leadership. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to take guys, and some guys are already leaders, take that knowledge and the skill set that they've got and apply it to other guys, and some guys who are uncomfortable leading, and just try to make them better fathers, better husbands, better pillars in the community, and just spread that out. So the more men we can get with the different skill sets, then the better job we can do, the better we can be as a community, and the better F3 will be, of course.
So, real quick, I kind of skipped a question. What does F3 actually stand for?
Fitness, fellowship, and faith.
Okay, and
3
kind of,
Fs.
yeah, so full disclosure, I am involved with F3 and have been for a little over 6 years, and the two guys here are guys that I consider to be two of my two really close friends. So, I'm a little familiar, so I'm trying to make sure we get some good questions asked, because we'll just start talking about stuff like EHing and what. And so if you don't know what that means, anybody out there, and maybe the 6 people that are listening today, since we have 2 esteemed guests, our listenership has doubled for this episode. But EH means emotional headlock. So that's what happens to you when somebody is trying to get you out to an F3 workout. And and I actually think, I could be wrong, but I think Whoopi is a Gastonia Redwood. Is that correct? Or
I think unofficially, I was at the 3rd workout. I was either working or out of town the first 2 weekends. But I'll follow on what you asked, Broke. I was EH'd by or heard about F3 through a guy I went to church with who's no longer actively involved in F3. It's Jason Shiflett, or Robbie.
Yeah. And
when the guys from Charlotte and South Carolina thought about investing their time in Gastonia, they got in touch with a bunch of guys from Gastonia, and one of them was Jason Shiflett, and he told everybody at church about this. So about 6 or 8 guys from our church came to the workouts the first few weeks, and it stuck with a bunch of us. And OBT was there leading the workout when I started, and I'm sure he knew my brother before he met me, so he knew a little bit about me. And I think he had my name already picked out. But I grew up in Macon, Georgia, and Macon had a hockey team back in the 80s called the Macon Whoopie. And so when I told him where I was from, he just got a funny look on his face, and I don't think he heard anything else I said, which I'm sure was very, very important stuff about me. And he said, "We're going to call you Whoopie." And I knew what it meant, but I don't know that anybody else there other than him knew what that meant.
Well, it's legendary now, not just in Gastonia, across all of F3 Nation. I guarantee you there's not another Whoopie
I don't think
anywhere.
So. And there's a reason for that.
Or another Stroganoff, for that matter. So we just kind of laid out a lot about, frankly, actually kind of all the beginnings of F3 as far as here in Gastonia. But somebody shows up to a workout. So you got fitness, fellowship, and faith. The fitness is what I guess we claim is what gets people out, right? That's kind of the trigger to get someone out. And then the fellowship, how would you describe the fellowship piece real quick? I mean, is that what brings you back, or what's the point?
That's the glue.
Okay.
Fellowship is the glue. It holds everything together, builds the bonds, and makes it stronger.
I think it's what sets us apart from a lot of other groups is you have a group of guys who have a lot in common, but they didn't know about it until they met each other. And you get them out there exercising, and it doesn't matter if you make $20 a week or $20 million a week. We don't care. You're out there getting your tail run in the ground by somebody because they want you to get a good workout. And then that leads to a conversation about what you do or who you are or struggles that maybe you're having. And that's where we all have a lot of common ground. And you don't know that before you know these guys because you don't know them, right? And so in our group of F3 guys in Gastonia, there might be 5 that I would know outside of F3, and the other 195 of them are guys I met through F3 that just have now become my best friends.
Yeah, I have a very similar experience, yes. In fact, I think the first time I met Broke, I think it was in the van on the way to the Tuna 200, wasn't it?
Yeah, first time I met both of you guys.
And we could get into things like that. There's a word I want to get to eventually is talking about CSOPs, but that's might get a little ahead of ourselves. Can one of you share just F3 Nation? Okay, we've got F3 Gastonia, which we consider what's called a region of F3 Nation. Kind of how did F3 originally actually get started, and how did that occur?
So F3. The story of F3 is in a book called Free to Lead. So you can look that up and read it. It's how many pages? Maybe 200 pages. It's not a very long book.
No, it's not long. Yep.
Yeah. But it's the story of this exercise group that started in Charlotte. A couple guys OBT and Dread decided they wanted to replicate that workout in another place because the guys at that workout thought they had enough people. They didn't want to bring in more people. It was getting too crowded, too many new faces, and for good reasons, they decided that's all they wanted. Well, Dread and OBT thought this is great for guys. We're going to go and start this down the street. So they started it down the street, and what was it, January 1st, 2011,
Yep,
32 guys showed up for a workout the day after New Year's Eve. And that was the birth of F3. So every week they would meet, and eventually it became more frequent meetings, and then a couple guys would leave or more guys would come and show up, and eventually this spread around to different places, and before you know it, it's across the country now. So when we go on vacation, any one of us, you can run into a guy wearing an F3 shirt or find a workout to go to at 5:30 in the morning just about anywhere you go. My kids laugh at this. When we went to, I forget where it was, Turks and Caicos. We're in the bar, and I'd had one or two beverages, and some guy walks in with an F3 shirt on, and I just beeline straight to him, stuck my hand out, "Hey, Whoopi, Gas House." And my kids heard me say that, so now they mock me for that, which is fine. But that was in Turks and Caicos, middle of nowhere, and I had something in common with this guy who I'd never known.
They're just jealous of what you were able to experience and share with someone.
Absolutely.
No question about it.
Yeah.
So you mentioned OBT and Dread. Full disclosure, that is Tim Whitmire. Is it Whitmire or Whitmer?
Whitmire.
And David Redding. And David Redding name is easy to come up with. That's where Dread came from. But OBT, I think, stands for Obama Tim. And if you want to read Free to Lead, I think you can get a good story about where that came from. And yeah, I think over time that that expanded and more people got involved. And to your point, what did they find kind of was the purpose they were serving? There's a phrase that's popular or well known inside F3 called "sad clown syndrome." Bro, can you kind of maybe describe your understanding of what that is and kind of how that F3 is, in theory, one of the potential cures for that?
Sure. Sad clown is just somebody that everybody, all of us have potential. And the hardest thing to do a lot of times with men is to unlock that potential. Guys will just, they'll come up with any excuse in the book not to do something. Can't get them out to a workout, can't get them out to a fellowship event or anything. And that's what we call a sad clown. Somebody's just sitting around really not going anywhere, not accelerating. And if you're not accelerating, then you're decelerating. So the whole purpose is to try to get those guys out and get them started and push them along to develop them. There's every excuse you can imagine you've heard of for people not getting out, but the biggest one is, I got to get in better shape before I come work out with you guys. That's just ridiculous to me. You come out and work with us, we'll get you in better shape. Nobody's going to leave you behind. We will stay with you, and you will get better.
I know when I first came out, it was a few weeks after the original workout. I think it was March, and maybe the very first week of May is actually when I made it out. And I was struck by the different levels of fitness. It wasn't, at the time I was running a little bit, but boy, I couldn't do 15 push-ups probably. But I could keep up with the running a little bit, but I was kind of in the middle to the back of the pack. And, a couple years later, I was able to kind of keep up at the front on occasion, depending on who was there. If Whoopi was there, I was able to stay out in front. If Broke was there, I was way behind typically.
Should we laugh?
Maybe you could, yeah.
Wait, can we do one of those things?
This is good.
Crickets?
That's good. That's perfect. Perfect timing there, Amy. Okay. So I want to talk about this relationships that we've developed and what F3 does for the kind of the male community. When you talk about or invigorating, not reinvigorating necessarily, but invigorating male community leadership. This I'm gonna get at this phrase called the seesaw, and for me, get your guys' feedback. For me, that is something. What I would call the shared pain and agony that we have shared, and you share with guys. Kind of, I sure don't want to compare it to anything like what military people, soldiers experience, but it's the same concept. Is you're doing hard things together, and that's what builds those bonds. So. Dustin, what does CSOP stand for, and kind of go through that, and maybe I don't know if that's your same experience you had with some of the relays and just some of the what I would call some of the crazy stuff I sure had never done before 6 years ago.
So CSOP is CSAUP, completely stupid and utterly pointless, and it's a term that was generated to kind of explain something stupid that doesn't have a point, but you really want to do it. And it's like you look at somebody and say, that's really stupid. What time does it start? Yes. I'll be there.
Sign me up.
Sign me up, yeah. And then the other part of it is usually as it leads up to it, you're spending a lot of time with these guys doing things, training, and then you go and do the event and you just complain for the next 4 or 5 hours about how hard it was, how tired it was, and usually on the way home you're planning the next one, right? So it's an event like a relay race or we did one called the Moron. Roscoe came up with and sort of sprung it on us, and it was a start at 3:15 in the morning. We're going to run from point A to point B, and then at point B we're going to pick up our rucksacks, do a workout, and then we're going to ruck from point B to point C and do another workout, and then eventually we'll get back in time to start the workout that starts at 7, and then we'll do the workout with the rest of the guys. And that was probably one of the funnest CSOPs we had. Part of it was we got a guy named What's Up who didn't know we were going to run, and he showed up just because he heard there was a CSOP and he wanted to be part of it. And what did he do? He ran the whole thing.
He sure did.
And he worked his butt off and had a blast. And we've had, similar events where you go with just a bunch of guys that you don't know that well. That's how we met Broke. And me, Broke, Stroganoff, and 3 other guys spent half a day in a van and the other half of the day running or trying to get some sleep and not getting any sleep, and had a blast. So it's shared pain that makes for great stories, and it's sort of the idea is the most ridiculous, the stupidest, most unlikely event to do, that's what we want to sign up for. And everybody wants to be part of it because you want to be able to talk about how much fun it was, and you don't want to miss anything. So CSOPs are sort of an idea of if you don't have enough chaos in your life, the CSOP is created to give you chaos. You don't know what's going to happen. You know it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to generate a lot of fun stories that we hear about for years afterwards. And, of course, they get blown up as time goes by.
Yeah, the fish gets bigger and bigger.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the Moron was one of the most appropriate named events that we have. More like, I was almost like, what did Roscoe describe, like a flash CSOP or something, just out of nowhere,
yeah.
The night before.
Heard about it the night before. Just clear the date. We'll get it set up, and we're looking for Moron Part 2. Roscoe, if you happen to be listening,
any day
now.
Yeah, and to describe what Whoopi was talking about with Broke is, I think it was I had never even heard of these relay races that occur, but there's 70-mile relays, 60-mile relays, 200-mile relays. The one Whoopi was talking about was one from roughly Raleigh to Wilmington, 200-some miles, and it takes roughly 30 hours. You got 12 guys and 6 in each van, plus a driver, and you're running, I don't know, anywhere from 12 to 20 miles over 3 different sections yourself. I mean, it's quite an experience, and one that after I heard about it, I'm not going to do that. I've done 5 or 6 long ones. I've done a couple short ones.
Mortimer.
The Mortimer. Oh. Now, that one is one I may never do again, in all seriousness. I may not recover. I think I'm going to have surgery because of that in a couple of weeks because of that event.
You'll be all right.
And what was the one we just ran down in y'all just ran it twice, and I had to run Ville, yeah, man, that was a good one. Of course, I didn't get to experience the full one, but we had the one that was from right around the Greenville area. So what that does, though, that develops these bonds. And if you've paid attention to the news lately, there's been a lot of well, not I don't want to say a lot, but more than one story I've seen about this issue with men as we get older, not developing friendships, not having any close friendships like you may have in high school or college, and as you go from college to whatever's next, working, maybe getting married, having children, there can be a gap there on what we used to have, and that's kind of the basis for sad clown syndrome, and it gets worse because you start making these excuses that Broke Especially the one about, I got to get in shape. I think in Free to Lead, I think Dredd describes it as what that's like. You want to stop at the bar on the way to have a drink with somebody. It's the same concept. So, what would you say, how would you describe what gets you coming back to the workout? We kind of touched on it, but, and maybe Brooke, start with you. What, in your own words, what keeps you coming back? Because this is not at 10 o'clock in the morning, whenever you can. These are typically 5:30, 6 or 7 on the weekends, and what we call in the gloom.
It's the accountability of others, and knowing that a lot of times I'm not going for myself. I'm going for the man to my left and the man to my right, what they may need or where they may be struggling. It's like Whoopi mentioned earlier, you get to know these guys, you get to know what their issues, their concerns, what kind of struggles they may be going through, and you're doing it for yourself, but you're also doing it for those other guys. The CSOPs and the other events that we sign up for, of course, we're going to train for those and try to get better as well. But at the end of the day, the fellowship and the support of others, and knowing that if I don't show up for a workout, I'm going to have 3 or 4 guys texting me and just berating me all day. Where were you? Why weren't you there? I thought you were coming. So there's an accountability, but it's all friendly. So it's all about most of the time. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But it's all about the relationships, and that's what keeps me coming back, and I think that's probably what keeps the majority of guys going. We can do the fitness part on our own, maybe not as well, maybe not as much variety, but you can get that on your own or at a gym, but it's not the same.
Yeah, you can't get the fellowship.
You cannot get the fellowship.
Whoopi, would you anything to add to that, or would you have a similar description of what brings you back?
I think that's the biggest reason it brings people back. I think the longer you're in F3, the more you realize you need the guy next to you just as much as he needs you, right? And you don't realize that until your world falls apart and everything around you is crumbling, and you got 25 guys that show up in your driveway with a shovel flag to lift you up, right? And you see that over and over and over again. In the 6 years we've had F3 in Gastonia, somebody's parents died, somebody got cancer, somebody had a sick kid, but they also are there to celebrate the good things. One of our guys, his daughter got married. A bunch of guys showed up for the wedding, right? I mean, it's a big deal to have friends, because you think about, I've got these acquaintances at work, I got these guys I know at church, I got friends that I grew up with that I see twice a year, maybe. That's nothing compared to F3. You get these guys who they know what your habits are. They know you're good and you're bad, and they love you for it anyway, not because they think they're better than you, but because they want to be part of your life and they want to help you get better. And by them helping you get better, you're helping them get better as well. So I think it makes us all better as a group, whether you're exercising or just showing up for the second F or the third F, or some guy starts a podcast and asks you to come out there and be on it, and you think, I don't want to be on that, but I'll do it because he's one of my friends.
And it might reach somebody who needs to hear this message.
Yeah, maybe so.
So you mentioned, I've heard it a couple of times, I did not ask this question earlier, you mentioned third F. So how would you describe, and we've kind of mentioned fitness and the fellowship side, how would you describe the third F?
We often say it's not any particular religion, but it's the belief in a higher power. Something else is in charge. And I think that's the right answer. The reality is F3 is has religious undertones with everything it does. And I think it probably is different in different regions how much there is. But the belief that somebody else is in control and that it's not me, right? Somebody else has got things under control. And when you realize that and you find a way to get at peace with that, it makes everything else kind of fall in place. And I think you realize that the more you see things fall apart and then somehow come back together.
Our wives might describe it as a cult.
Right, but as Dredd and OBT say, it's a good kind of cult, like
correct.
The Blue Oyster cult.
That's right. More cowbell.
Cowbell.
So I kind of have taken you guys off track of all those. Sorry about all those questions we sent you that I haven't even asked for the most part. But I'm going to kind of run back to one of those. This is a podcast about why Gaston County is great. So, Broke, you may have already described this, but why would you say Gaston County is a better place because F3 is here?
Well, I think we've, like I've said, we're making the better leaders, but just to see some of the developments that we've had and some of the input we've had in the county, and we're trying to do more and more outreach and public service types things. We've got a couple projects that we're working on for later this year, but one thing particular that comes to mind, I believe it was about 2 years ago, maybe 2 weeks before Christmas, one of the guys in F3 found out that there was a local ministry that still had about 13 children that nobody had provided Christmas presents for. I think within 48 hours, we put together $3,000 and took it down there and said, get the presents.
Yeah, I remember
so
that.
That's the kind of things that we're looking for. Wasn't F3 related. One individual that was a part of F3 saw that need, acted on it, and we stepped up and provided it. So the more stuff like that we can do within the county, I think the more impact we'll have, and that's all we're trying to do.
Whoopi, what about you? What would you say is why Gaston's better?
I think it's made a difference in a lot of guys' lives. It makes you accountable to your friends for who you are and the things you do. When I show up for a workout and other things like that, and I get to know these guys, they know when I'm stepping out of line and doing something or saying something I shouldn't. It makes me accountable to somebody other than the people that I choose to be accountable to, which, you can take that for whatever it is. When I'm at work, I'm accountable to my partners as long as they're in front of me, but my personal life is my personal life. And F3 shows me what I should do and gives me guys to kind of keep me accountable. And it also helps me, I think, avoid the sort of potholes that are around me that maybe I don't recognize that somebody else might see. I mean, we've talked about that with our Sunday morning Q source, our blind spots. And it's something I'm never going to see, but I've got guys around me that are going to see that have either been down that road and they know what to keep me away from so that I'm being the best person I can be. So I think keeping guys accountable for their actions, the guys that are in F3, and helping us become better leaders. Some people are better than that than others, but everybody at one time or another is forced into that role with F3, and you develop that skill the more you do it. So it's been a great experience for me. I think I've sort of gone up and down like just about everybody else with my involvement in F3, but it's been a part of my life since it started 6 years ago.
What in the very beginning, and this kind of goes to the next question. In the intro, I've used the word Nantan to describe both of you, which Whoopi was the original, the very first F3 Gastonia Nantan, and Broke is the current F3 Nantan. Broke, kind of real quick, what does that even mean? Or do you even know?
I guess you would call it the president. If
that's probably
the most relative term you can use. So not a lot involved with it other than just trying to make sure everything's staying on track. I know most of us when we're in Nantan, you're one as well. Don't leave yourself out of there. Has an initiative or something that they'd like to see happen during their year in service. Mine this year was growth, just trying to get the region bigger in all three Fs. But, it's just basically making sure if any problems come up or if anybody's got any issues to try to make sure the lines of communication are open and things are progressing, try to get out and see all the guys in all the different areas and see what we need to do to make this thing better.
What when you look at and let me back up, there is a leadership group too, right? I mean,
Correct.
It's not just it's not a dictatorship.
That's correct.
I mean, it was when Whoopi was the Nantan, but
Absolutely.
So there is a group of, I don't know how many guys, 15 to 20 probably, or is it that big?
It's about I think we've got about 10 or 11.
Okay. And so there is some structure to it based on what F3 and kind of the nation recommends, but it is left up to our own devices on how we want to basically run our run the organization here. So the only requirements are for F3 to be considered an F3 group or an F3 workout. It's a test. What are the 5 things that are required or
The core principles.
The core principles. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for clearing that up. What are the 5 core principles of
So
F3?
the 5 core principles, they are really the only rules for F3, and they're supposed to be part of any workout, which is the 5 things are, it's for men only. So you'll see events that maybe have females there, but it's specifically like an event that's not just the typical F3. So we may do a kids' day or a family event, a social event, but an F3 workout, men only. It's outside, rain or shine, hot or cold. We've had workouts in the snow. We've had them in pouring down rain. We've got some in the afternoons that are 95-degree heat. They're there whatever their time for their workout. So it's men only. It's outside. It's free. Nobody pays a dime for this. It ends with a circle of trust, and we can talk about that in a minute. But basically, it's a time where we share whatever's on our mind, ask for prayer requests, and at the end we say a prayer, and then
Peer-led in a rotating fashion.
Peer-led in a rotating fashion. Thank you, Brooke. So everybody takes a turn leading, and you either volunteer or you get voluntold to be the leader. So if we've got a workout one week and it's the 3 of us, I may lead the first week, and then the next week Stroganoff's going to lead, and then the week after that Brooke is going to lead, and then we'll assign somebody else to lead. So everybody has a chance to lead, and your job as the leader is to come up with a workout that challenges the guys that are in the best shape but keeps the guys that are in the least good of shape part of the group. And after a while of doing this, you see some guys are really, really good at this, and other guys are still making progress learning how to do that. But those are the 5 core principles that should be part of any workout. Now, we added a 6th one this past week that's an unofficial, at least in Gastonia. You have to be willing to help move somebody when they move from their house to another. That's been something. We've got a few guys that have had issues moving and needed a few guys, and we get 10 or 20 guys to show up. And
Doesn't take long when you have a bunch of F3 guys.
Yeah.
What is that? Am I right when the unofficial motto of F3 is leave no man behind, but leave no man where you found him? Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good short description of what F3 is about. So as Nantan and former Nantans, how do you envision F3 looking like in Gaston County 5 or 10 years from now?
I'd like to see it doubled in size, and I think it's possible. But I'd like to see some more annual charitable events where we've got some specific organizations or some specific groups that we're trying to support financially or through volunteering or however that is. Just to get a little more structure to that side of it, to build the community impact up with that. Continue to add workouts. I think we've done a good job this year. Going back to the SAG clowns, a lot of people say, well, I don't run or I can't run. Well, we've kind of eliminated that
barrier,
that barrier, because we've got non-running workouts. We've got workouts that are specifically all running, some that are non, and some that are a combination of both, just regular boot camps. So we trying to remove barriers and continuing to grow this thing. So just continue to do that, and hopefully we'd be doubled in size by then with a lot of organizations we're standing behind.
So more people impacted, and not just with F3 guys. That's a good vision. Anything you want to add to that, Whoopi, or did Broke cover it pretty well?
I think he covered it. I think the thing that will make us more impactful in the community is we have, like you said, some kind of event that becomes a recurring event for the community that is sponsored by F3. I mean, we can do these CSOPs, we can do the workouts, we can do all that year after year after year. We've already proven that. I think really what makes us more valuable to the community, besides what we're doing now, is to have some kind of charity that we stick with. A few years ago we did the Toys for Tots with the Boys and Girls Clubs.
Yeah.
Bandit did that for probably 5 years, I bet, 4 or 5 years. And that was great. I think we can build on that. And we got a few guys over in Dallas that have got a few really good charities. We got CPAP over at Holy Angels has got a good connection there. So I think we've got the opportunity. We just need to formalize that and build a sort of a structure. And I think that's where we could probably use some input from some of the guys in Charlotte that have been, a little more sort of focused on how they develop that sort of process.
Earlier, when you were talking about the core principles, you mentioned it's for men only. And I knew this question is going to come up probably. Is there a female version of F3?
There is. It's called FIA, F-I-A, Females in Action. I know it's taken off in Lake Wiley. I don't believe it's really taken off physically in Gastonia, but some of the people from Gastonia go over to Lake Wiley. But it's an exercise program similar to F3 with a leadership program that I don't know how developed that is, but I think they have a similar background to F3.
Amy, there's a challenge for you to start a FIA group here in Gaston County. Okay, that's how it starts. Did you just say after all this that you've got to get in shape first? All right, we got you covered there. Is there any question I haven't asked, guys, that you think you can think of, or something else you want to share specifically about F3? I mean, we're going to come back near the end, but we're going to get to the more important questions here shortly.
I'd like to put in a plug for Speed for Need. That's an event we try to participate in, and it's I think the motto of that is we run for those who can't. It's we've got some racing wheelchairs that we bring over to some of these 5K, 10K events, and individuals, whether they be veterans or children with disabilities that doesn't allow them to run, we put them in those chairs and we push them for the race. I know the big one we've got coming up is the Christmastown 5K in McCaddenville, and at this time, I don't think we have all the chairs filled. So for somebody out there listening that has
very good, yes,
a relationship with a child or someone that is unable to run a race and they would like to see if they could participate in it, I'd say they'd reach out to you and you get them in touch with the person.
Absolutely, we can.
So that's another impactful way. It makes a big difference, and I've always gotten more out of it than I think the kids have that I've pushed.
Listen, I've had the good fortune to push twice. Once at the community foundation run, and then another one in the Belmont. Oh, I'm not going to remember the name of that Belmont 5K, but you talk about impactful.
On both sides.
Yes, but one of the greatest, one of my favorite pictures. Matter of fact, you went in my office. It's posted on my wall. Is a picture that the Gazette took when right at the beginning of the communication run, and the young man from Holy Angels that was in that chair put his arms up like he was flying. And, man, that was, of course, and the other thing that happened in that situation, I took off way too fast. Whoopi had to come in and about halfway and take over the chair because I was spent. But yeah, that's super impactful. What about you, Whoopi? Anything else you want to share, or another question I should have asked that I haven't?
I think one thing, I can't think of anything really. F3 has been life-changing for a lot of people. I don't think the level of impact is really understood as well by people who are not in F3, right? I mean, it's sort of one of those things you really have to experience it to understand it.
You don't know what you don't know until
right.
you're involved with it.
The closest thing for me for F3 for the longest time was high school football practice in the summer. I mean, I loved that. And I remember workouts out at Stuart Kramer, out on the football field. And the first time we were out there and somebody put a tackling dummy up and I took off running. And most of the guys out there didn't know me that well. And I left the ground, dove on it, rolled around on the grass, and I thought it was just the best ever. And so the physical part is really good, but that's not the best part of F3. Right? You don't realize that until you're in it for a while, what it means besides the work. Because like Broke said, we could do the workout. You can do the workout on your own. You can push yourself as hard as you want. You can get in shape, be a great runner, do 50 push-ups, whatever. But that doesn't compare at all to the relationships. And that's where I think really the value of F3 is these relationships that people form with guys that they have absolutely nothing in common in before they met each other at F3. And I think a big part of that is the structure of F3 that OBT and Dredd built with the naming process, right? You feel this sense of identity because somebody gave you a name that's stupid and really doesn't make any sense unless you know the background, right? Somebody, why are you Broke? Why are you Stroganoff? Why am I Whoopi? Well, we could talk a little bit about that and you understand that. And then from then on, you're walking through a grocery store and somebody yells out, Whoopi! Yeah. And you immediately feel this bond with that person. And you can't replicate that at work. You can't replicate that with friends from high school that you don't talk to anymore. F3 is really about the relationships that you build and grow and that develop and make you a better person for that, because everybody in this organization that sticks with it and learns this wants to help you become a better person. Where else do you get that? Nowhere. Maybe at GSM services. Maybe.
Oh, yes, every day.
Every day.
Right, Amy? Yeah, I think I've heard a lot. It's not just a workout, but you do probably have to experience that to understand kind of what what exactly that means. So we're going to come back to that to F3, and I've got probably a little something I wanted to share to kind of to finish off here and later. But remember, this is a podcast. We're going to shift gears. This is a podcast about why Gaston County is great, and this is what we call our Gaston County speed round of questions. And every time I say that, I said, Amy, we got to come up with a better name. And you're our marketing director, so you're going to help me out with that going in the future. All right, great. So we're going to start with what the people of Gaston County really want to know about the two of you. We're going to start with you, Broke. Favorite Tony's ice cream flavor?
Chocolate Ripple.
Chocolate Ripple. That's what I'm talking about. Whoopee?
Probably chocolate. It's been a while since I've had a milkshake.
As long as you don't say lemon, which is Vinny Cherry Sargento's favorite flavor. Anything else is acceptable answer. Sundrop or Cheerwine?
Sundrop all day.
Never had one of them. Either one of them, ever.
Finally, perfect timing. That was perfect timing. Then you stopped it again or something.
I did ask my wife, and I think she likes Sundrop best.
Well, then that's all we need to know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Caroline, for answering the question that your husband wasn't able to answer appropriately. I will have to admit that Renee Anthony kind of gave me a hard time for some of these questions during the Heart Society podcast, but especially this next one. This is not a cardiologist-approved question. So you prefer Eastern or Western style North Carolina barbecue?
Eastern.
Western.
Eastern has the vinegar?
Eastern has the vinegar.
Yeah, Eastern.
It's not an appropriate answer if you had to ask.
Just making sure.
I'm with Broke on that one. Favorite local restaurant?
Ray Nathan's.
Western style barbecue. There you go.
Yeah, hard to argue with that.
Okay.
Viva Techies. I like Viva Techies. Downtown.
Okay, yeah. Sorry. It took me a second there. Yeah.
Really, really good queso.
Guacamole.
And guacamole. They got the best
really
guac
good.
around, I think.
Favorite outdoor activity or place to visit here in Gaston County? Besides all of our AOs.
Crowder's Mountain.
Yeah, Crowder's Mountain.
Yeah, Crowder's Mountain's great. All right, here's the most important question. UNC, Duke, or NC State?
UNC. I don't know anything about those other two schools. Never heard of them.
Duke, said Madeline. Let's. Duke.
Okay, I was getting ready to, but because you threw Madeline in, I'm going to have to go with it.
That's right. You'll have to suffer the consequences if you say anything bad about that.
Whoopi, what is something very few people know about you?
I'm kind of an open book, I think.
For some reason I knew he was going to say
all right,
that.
Let me think. Start with Broke. I'll come back to you. Give me a second.
I'm terrified of snakes. I'm like a little girl around. It doesn't matter what kind of snake, green, black, copperhead, kill them all. I can't stand it.
I can feel you that, especially some of the houses I've crawled under and snakes between me and the exit. That's a bad situation.
Yeah.
I think outside of F3, I like jumping in puddles. That's something people outside of F3 don't know about me.
Okay, yes. I can
We know it very well.
We all
Thank
know
you
that.
very much.
You're welcome. When we run, I find puddles to jump in and splash. So if you're a new guy, I'll ask them, and if I'm running next to you, I'll ask them what time it is, so they'll look at their watch. They won't see the puddle come up, and then just
I no longer fall for that, by the way. Yeah. I will look ahead and get out of the way. So if we could rename Whoopi, it would probably be Dennis the Menace or something because of your puddle hopping. How about Broke? Sorry, how about a book or something you've read lately that you would recommend?
We got to plug Free to Lead and Q-Source, of course, but actually one I'm reading right now is No Pain, No Gains. Chip Gaines. I got it for Father's Day, and kind of relates to F3 a little bit because it's about network, the noun, instead of network or networking, the verb, and the importance of the people that are within your network and how it's relational. The relationships are more important than just collecting business cards and how they can advance you in life. So so far it's a pretty good read.
Is that the Magnolia guy?
It is.
Okay.
Interesting
Making sure.
guy.
I'm sure, yeah. That would be my wife-approved book, I'm sure. She's all about that Magnolia stuff. Dr. Letts?
I've started reading 2 books recently, both by coaches, one by John Wooden and one by Lou Holtz. And I like them both, but I think I like the Lou Holtz book a little bit better. He's coming to speak to the
Hall of Fame?
Hall of Fame.
Gaston County Hall of Fame.
In October. And I got a buddy of mine outside of F3 who went to Notre Dame. So he's Sargento got us tickets. So anyway, I got the book, and it's interesting how similar they are about their approach to coaching. They never really coached to win. They coached to get the best out of their players. And winning was just sort of a byproduct. So, and they both talk about that in their book.
It's about the process and
right.
getting better, yeah.
Right.
Which is, that sounds very F3-ish, doesn't it? Just be better today than you were yesterday. Yeah. And it's not about, you're not competing against who you're competing against. You're competing against yourself. So I'm almost afraid to ask this question. Do those books have titles?
They do. The Lou Holtz book is Wins, Losses, and Lessons, I think.
Okay.
And the John Wooden book is I can't remember that many.
Okay.
That many
Well,
words.
luckily, John Wooden isn't someone that has, he probably has, 30 books or more. So we'll just go, read. Listeners out there, just go pick one. I can guarantee it'll be good. I'm gonna say Wooden on Leadership. I know that's not the book he's talking about, but that's one that I would recommend from John Wooden. But we do have technology in the room, so he is working feverishly to find the title.
Here it is: A Lifetime of Observations and Reflections on and off the court. That's too much to remember.
I can see why you.
It's a
blue
one with a yellow line across the front. It says Wooden.
Okay, that's good. I appreciate that.
You got it.
So I appreciate that outstanding summary of your thoughts on everything great about Gaston County. So Broke, back to you. Besides F3 Gastonia, why is Gaston County a great place?
It's a tough one. There's a lot of great things. The people. I mean, it's a down-to-earth place to live. That's why we've never gone anywhere else. So I'm going to say the people.
And that's been a common theme, and I would absolutely agree with that. Whoopi?
For me, it's a place my family's happy, right? And that makes me willing to put up with a lot of stuff that maybe I don't like or love, because I know they're happy and they're comfortable, and we've got a great network of people around us. So I would agree, just because my family's happy, it makes me happy.
That's really good, Whoopi.
You're more insightful in here than you are at the workout.
Yes, he is.
Well, I've got my glasses on.
Okay.
It usually makes me
He's got
at least look a little smarter.
them internets over there. He's looking all this stuff up as he's talking. That was very good. So this is probably my favorite question. Start with you, Whoopi. What advice, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Yeah, I've thought about this, and
That's scary.
It's an easy answer, and it's still a hard answer. I think my wife might kill me when I get home if she listens to this, but
she's listening.
Because we've talked about this, actually.
We're going to bring her a zip drive with it on it.
We've talked about this at workout. What would you – because I think we were talking to your son-in-law, to
Gold Digger.
Gold Digger, about,
That's
what
correct.
kind of advice
Broke's son-in-law is named Gold Digger, just for the record.
And he has a son named Nugget.
That is so F3. That is terrific.
So we were talking to Gold Digger, who's – how was he, 24?
20,
that was like when he started.
5, 6.
Yeah.
This
mid-20s.
This guy's got things together more than I think any of us did at age 35 or 40.
Or 50.
Or 50. and we were I don't know if we were running or what. We couldn't have been running because I wouldn't be able to keep up with it. I mean, he wouldn't be able to keep up with me. But we were talking. No, it was a Q source one time. We said, what kind of advice can we give Gold Digger?
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
As a 45, 50-year-old guy to a 20 to 25-year-old guy, and to me it was, it was really easy. It was, she's not that important, right? In high school or in college, this is before I met my wife. That's my disclaimer. she's not that important. I put my focus on something other than it should be, and as a young man, that was more important than a lot of other things. And so that would be the advice that I'd give myself 30 years ago.
So perspective, right? And the things that seem important when you're 20 might not be
Right.
as important as we make them out to be.
Right.
I'm going to clean that one up because Caroline might be listening to this.
Yeah.
He's talking about
She is way more important now.
broke. Could you please take over after that?
Yeah, it was early 20s, but I would say slow down. Once,
Yeah.
I got married fairly early, and I've always been kind of driven, I guess, and just wanted certain things and was pushing to get those things. And it took me until probably our second child was born to say, okay, I got to slow down. There's too much going on. It's not worth it. There's some things that are just not meant to be missed, and I'm missing too much of it. So slow down and stay in better shape, because it was a whole lot harder to get back in shape in my 30s. If I could have just kept it up from 19 or 20 and kept going, it would have been a whole lot easier. But, just slow it down. Enjoy it. Enjoy life.
You blink your eyes and you'll have a grandchild,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. The 20-year-old question just takes me back to so many things. And I can't say this today, but a few months ago, I was in better shape than I was when I was 30 or 40.
Absolutely, I am.
I've been on the DL now for a while, but so I've kind of, what is it? Dredd calls it the Pogo 40. I don't quite have the Pogo 40 going on, but I got a Pogo 10 going on for sure the last couple weeks and months or so.
So what's your advice you'd tell yourself 30 years ago?
You know what? It would be the exact same thing that you said. I would just phrase it in a way that wouldn't get me in trouble at home.
We can edit this though, right?
No. Oh no, not so. And I think I have been asked that back to me. But yeah, it's the things that seem so important when you're 20. I mean, they matter, but it's just not. It's not this world-ending event, because I've got I have a 22-year-old, a 20, and a 15-year-old, and I can see some of the things that they're experiencing and dealing with. It's such a big deal, and they just don't have the perspective to understand. Of course, I had zero perspective when I was 20 about much of anything, other than what's for dinner. I mean, whatever. I mean, I just had no concept of the importance of things that you can only understand with experience and age. Even the slow down part broke. It's almost impossible when you're 20 to slow down and take it in and realize that these experiences are so important. Now, F3 has helped me with that. I'm going to share a little bit about my story. This is kind of the first time I've done this. Haven't done this on the first 12 episodes, but F3 has been I think you mentioned earlier how big of a impact it's had on so many people, including yourself, and I've seen that. But F3 came into my life, and it's funny, we just had this discussion a little bit yesterday at Q-Source. It came into my life right before maybe the three most traumatic things that ever occurred to me. And the first was my father-in-law living with us, and when he was diagnosed with cancer, and then eventually passing, and my father passed away almost 3 years ago, and then this event that we've dealt with almost 3 months ago, when, of course, this is not going to come out for 5 or 6 weeks from the day that we actually are recording this, but it's almost 3 months ago when we dealt with this event here at GSM with losing a couple of team members. And the people that have really, my family supported me obviously through all that, but externally it was my F3 guys that really lifted me up, maybe more than anyone. And that's the ultimate experience that I've had through F3, other than getting in a little better shape than I was when I was 30 or 40. And but that is ultimately, I think, what F3 is about. It's about developing that better community and the better relationship at a time when men struggle to be able to do that, or to find that relationship, those relationships where they can share and talk about things that ultimately are important that you might not be able to elsewhere. Now, I'm very lucky that I've got a terrific family, a terrific wife and kids, and it's a great support system, but it's just different. That's just different than what you experience with your F3 brothers, and the shared agony that we have in the gloom or so many CSOPs. So that's kind of just, I could go into this. And this is interesting. This podcast, I'm afraid we could go on for another 2 hours talking about, all the different events. And but correct me if I'm wrong, but it felt like you were getting ready to share something else, or no?
No.
I'm pointing at Whoopi for the record.
Yeah.
Brooke seems content over there.
I'm good.
I think the thing is about F3 is it prepares you for the things that you don't know are coming, right? You don't
Preparedness,
know,
yes.
Yeah, you don't know what that disaster is that's waiting outside the door, but you know it's there, and you figure out a way to get through it with 25 or 30 or 50 or 100 of your newest best friends that support you through it. And whether it's something personal or something professional, whatever it is, you can share it with these guys that are going to help you get through it. And maybe they're just there to listen to you, or maybe they're there to fix the problem with you, but you've got somebody there. When you do have something that is coming up that's stressful, it kind of calms things, right? You got this storm you're going through, and you've got somebody there that can kind of pull up the slack if you need some help. And I think F3 helps you realize that you're not doing it by yourself.
You're not alone. Yep.
Yeah, it's just that bond. I mean, it's I don't know if it's because men in general are reluctant to share with one another. And
Correct. Yep.
I don't know if it's the experience of the pain and the workouts and stuff that brings us closer together, or proximity, or whatever it is. But over time, these guys are all my friends, and I'd be there for any one of them, and I know that all of them will be there for me. So,
I've seen you both do that. So, I think you just summed it up pretty well. So, finishing up here, how would somebody find out about F3? Where can they go? Who can they contact? This is going to release on a Thursday probably. So, somebody hears this Thursday at lunch. Where's the next workout they can go to?
Poston Park, 5:30 p.m.
5:30 p.m. Thursday
p.m.
afternoon.
Poston Park on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons.
Hopefully, it'll be cooler than it is today.
Yes.
That can be a brutal workout with the heat. So, what about website? How can they go find out more about F3 and when and where workouts are?
Just get on the internet, the interwebs, and look for F3 Nation Gastonia. And honestly, you can probably hang out in Harris Teeter and you'll see a guy walk in with an F3 shirt.
Probably, yeah.
And you ask him. The easiest thing is show up at the Shield Museum a little before 7 a.m. on Saturdays.
Yes.
And there's usually a crowd there. And there's enough people doing something that you can do, whether you're in shape or not, that you'll find your new best friend and spend the next hour with them, doing something that you didn't plan on doing and you probably haven't done before. But it'll be the best move you ever make.
Or Stowe Park just before 7 in Belmont, or just before 6:30 on Saturdays at Biggerstaff Park in Dallas. And then did we know, I used to know this, but I don't anymore, how many workouts are there actually?
25.
Are there 25?
25 in Gaston County now.
7 and at least one every single day, right?
Correct. Yeah. Correct. And if you live in Gaston County, there is at least one, if not more, workouts within 10, max 15 minutes of where you live. Only place we don't have coverage is up towards Cherryville, but you can get to Dallas in 15 minutes. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, F3Gastonia.com. All the workouts are listed on that page. Tells you a little bit about it. And then if you're a Twitter person, follow at F3 Gastonia as well. Yeah,
there's more than one Twitter account related to F3 Gastonia. Yeah. That is where a lot of communication happens through F3 Gastonia and F3 Nation.
Best thing is just show up with a pair of gloves Saturday morning at one of those 3 workouts.
Yes.
Show up a little before 7 and wear something you don't mind if it gets dirty and sweaty.
And you will be welcomed in, regardless of
absolutely
of background or anything else.
Just make sure you don't tell too much of your story, because then you get named something you don't want.
Yeah.
Like Stroganoff.
Think before you answer the question, what was your favorite food as a child? Somebody like Whoopi might just tag you with that forever. The only good thing is it's probably the only one in all of F3 Nation that's named Stroganoff.
You're welcome.
I'm not sure I could even spell that before I said it. Well, guys, listen, this has been really, really good. I can't thank you enough for your time. And like I said, we could talk about the details and info, specifics of F3 for a long time. But I think we are officially the longest Gaston's Great podcast, which is great. I say that word a lot, great, during these podcasts, don't I, Amy? It's almost as bad as somebody that says incredible in all those commercials. So what's something that we try to do, and both Dustin and Robbie mentioned this, but I try to leave my own book recommendation, and I did to the shout out to the two F3 books. The first has already been mentioned. Both of them actually been mentioned, but Free to Lead is a great book. It's written by the founders of F3, David Redding and Tim Whitmire. And it does tell the story of F3, its mission, and what it's all about. It's a great place to learn. The second is a F3 leadership book called Q Source that was written by David Redding. I'd strongly recommend that. And actually, there are on Sunday mornings, if you want to, before you go to a workout, there are actually two places where we do have some leadership studies going on at the Ingalls and Dallas. At the Q Source part is at 7:30.
7:15
to 7:30. And then at the Harris Teeter at the corner of intersection of Robinwood and Kendrick Road. And that's typically around 7:30. We in the Starbucks there. Actually, Starbucks at both locations, right? So if you want to come meet a few of the F3 guys and listen to some thoughts about F3. And then I'll finish up with a quote, a thought for the week. And this one is, again, one of my favorites, and it really sticks. This is something you'll see all through F3 Nation on so many things, and I think it describes what F3 is really about. And it comes from Proverbs 27:17, and it reads, "As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another." Again, that is the whole point, and I think Brooke mentioned it well earlier, talking about the accountability that you have from others. But the point is to help yourself and your F3 brothers get a little better to tomorrow than you were today. So thanks so much for taking the time to listen to today's episode. Please spread the word if you can about the podcast, and please don't hesitate to contact us here at podcast@gastonsgreat.com. We're always looking for suggestions for future podcast topics and guests. You can find the podcast and subscribe at the website, gastonsgreat.com, and please follow us on our social media platforms. You can also find us and subscribe on most podcast services such as iTunes, Spotify, and Google. Thanks again to Robbie and Dustin from F3 Gastonia for being our guests today. Gaston's Great is produced and brought to you by Amy Anderson and Elizabeth King from GSM Services, and edited here locally by the Sumner Group. I'm your host, Stephen Long. Thanks again for hanging out with us, and please keep coming back to hear more reasons why Gaston's great.